All right, I'm back for the episode of Carnivore Trade. Today is Friday, February 23rd, 2024. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Don't find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts, analysis, and live day trading. Anyways, let's get into it today. So markets here today, basically a nothing burger. So I figured this would kind of happen this morning. We had a big 2% up day yesterday, and 3% on the NASDAQ. So generally, you're going to get a pause after that. I would have been really surprised if we kept screaming higher. We had to have a little gap up open, and then we kind of pulled back in towards 5,100. We never really got that far away from that handle really all day long. And again, just kind of like a digestion day for the most part, really nothing to write home about or speak too much about in regards to the price action. However, we did tag this upper trend line. I'm leaving this rising wedge on here. You know, I don't like that we damaged it and then kind of came back in, but I'm going to leave it on there because it's still a tightening range, it appears. And we never really confirmed below it, to be honest, because we really just had one day where we closed on it and then we got right back above. The Qs did do that. And the Qs are still a little bit weaker than the spiders, right? We have just a slight higher high here on the Qs versus the SPX and the spiders, which have that higher high. So strangely enough, you know, tech is actually the laggard right now, which is so ironic because NVDA basically is the market, and it makes up much more of the NASDAQ than it does the S&P. And obviously that's been driving the gains lately. So you'd think the Qs would be up more, but you know, still a little bit of softness in stocks like Apple down 1% today, Microsoft down 32 basis points after the pop yesterday. I think Google's been kind of flattish. Yeah, Google was flat today and still below this rising wedge here too. So this is a bigger rising wedge on Google. Broke down, and you can make a case you back tested it with a bear back test for now. But again, NASDAQ a little bit on the weaker side. And, you know, let's not make too much out of it. So I will say, yeah, there's still, you know, a lot of danger in terms of just low concentration of gains, right? The leadership's thinning out even more so. Like I said, NVIDIA is the market at this point. It's now a $2 trillion company. It has a larger market cap than a lot of countries now, which can only be said for Apple and Microsoft. And it's crazy because this all happened within the span of like less than a year. So it's just a meteoric rise. If that ever unwinds, it could be dangerous. Also, the more vertical we go, the more dangerous it gets. But right now, is from a technical standpoint, there is no problems. So I know everybody wants to like look for tops and everything, and I'd like a correction too. I think everybody would. I think even the bulls want a correction to be able to buy dips in some things. But I think a lot of people are trying to short, and that's why we keep squeezing higher. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. If we get a high volume sell, some type of breakdown, then we'll look at it that way. But I don't really have, you know, unless something happens next week, I don't really have anything cycle-wise that's coming up anytime soon either. So I think the bears kind of dropped the ball here. You know, it could be dead wrong. Maybe we gap down on Monday. That's possible. I will say one thing about today, the price action that definitely got my antennas up, and it was very strange. Did not expect this at all. But take a look at the 30-year. So ZB was up 1%. It's a pretty big move for ZB. Now, it wasn't like, you know, you still have a red bar you're inside of. You did have volume coming off the lows, though. And you still, you know, have a weekly downtrend. I'm not saying that I'm bullish bonds or anything. I'm still not. But in the, you know, short term doesn't mean we can't get a bid. But what's strange is that the market was sideways doing nothing. And the VIX was down all day, so we knew we were not going to pull back that much. VIX was down all day. But bonds really, look at ZB intraday. I mean, this just ripped. And then we look at gold. Gold confirmed it with a big rip. It did come off the highs by the end of the day, but big rip here intraday for gold. The dollar, just a nothing burger, little doji candle. Nothing wrong there. But look at oil. Oil came in pretty sharply, down 2.6. Still has this bullish structure here on the daily. Nothing's broken about that, but I kept thinking like, okay, it's going to put in the higher lows. Take a look. You know, I saw this come down. Then we had that big sharp reversal this morning. I said, okay, that's it'll put in a higher low. It's oil. The dips have been bought on oil lately. And then it rolled over. And then we got another one. I said, okay, this now it's hit. The lows are in. Where to go? And then nothing. So we're just down near the lows of the day. I don't know. Why am I bringing this up? Well, isn't it a little strange that bonds are ripping like that? Oil selling off and gold is ripping. It's not like there's any news for that to be the case. It's also a strange, it almost makes me think like there's going to be geopolitical news coming out over the weekend. At the same time, oil should be ripping higher if there's geopolitical problems, you'd think. So then the other thing you would look at is, okay, those must be bank problems then. KRE is fine. You know, it was down 10 cents today, right? XLF made a new 52-week high today. I think multi-year high, actually. 20 cents finally getting to our 40 handle. So that's really the only, like, red flag I saw. Again, the VIX was down 79 cents. So if there was, like, somebody knowing something, you'd think the VIX would be creeping up all day long. It really wasn't. So maybe it's just a one-day wonder. I don't know. I will say another thing, too, about the yield curve, or about yields, rather. Is there's the Hang Seng. By the way, my China call has worked out really well. Just took profits on 2 Chinese ETFs, Yin and CWeb, 8 days in a row up for the Shanghai Composite. There's blood in the streets. Yeah, I had to do it. So, but let's look at the yield curves here. So, you know, they are coming back in a little bit, right? So they definitely came in. If you look at the 2-year, that yield was down. And the 30 years down more, so you get the idea. But that's really all I've got. So today was pretty non-eventful. Market is in control. Here's your level to watch. If 49.46, if we break that on a close, or I would say even if we just get below it, that would be a big red flag for bulls. Right now, full bull control above that. Triple Qs here. We're going to say right here. So that's 421. 63. IWM is actually interesting here. I know it hasn't done anything or participated in the rally, but on the weekly time frame, this pattern's not bad. This is actually holding up okay. So as long as that hangs in there, I don't really see any issues for IWM. And you know, it could maybe it finally breaks out over 205. You got higher lows here and basically equal highs, so that's not terrible. The Dow here via the diamond up 74 cents. I told you guys I would get a level work done for that, and it is 392, which we hit today. Oh, so we pierced it by a little bit, 395, and then obviously 400 would be a whole round number. So diamond holding up and pulling back off the highs. Anyway, SMH here. So a little bit of a gap and crap. We talked about that, or did I talk about that? I don't remember. But in NVDA here, kind of a gap and crap today. Nothing really wrong with it though. You know, you're a little overbought. It's $2 trillion company now. You knew they were going to get it up there, right? You knew that it was so close they had to get it to that level. Trend is up. It's overbought. It's parabolic. You know the drill. But, you know, it's got to be respected until we get a sell signal. I will say SMCI, you know, everybody got bullish again yesterday. And I think they sold a lot of calls at 1,000 because today they whacked it right back down. You can see here. Gap down open by the dip, and then the by the dippers got crushed. So you may have a lower high here on SMCI. This stock is important to me because this is the pinnacle of risk on. And if this thing starts selling off and takes out this low, that's going to be one of my red flags that I'd be looking at for a possible end to this stock market rally. But SMCI reversed pretty much all of yesterday's move, or at least the regular trading hours. IGV up 0.5%. Let's not make too much out of that. That's still okay there on the weekly time frame. Dow Transport's had a decent day. Remember, we had some damage earlier this week and late last week, and that is repaired. Weekly time frame is also okay, and this actually is starting to firm up and look pretty good. So I actually think the transports are pretty attractive here. Maybe it's a roll. Maybe it's a rotation out of tech and into IWM, transports, and some other sectors. It certainly could be a possibility. All right, we talked about interest rates, but you're going to see here the 2-year backed off a little bit off the 200 moving average. This pattern is still fine, though. I just don't think it's quite ready to get through this pivot. It can just put in a higher low here and go higher. Same thing with 5s. 10s a little bit weaker outside, a little bit more of an outside move, but still okay. 30s, same thing. I would not really like to see a close below 435 on a daily. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would probably mean that you're going to have to go down and maybe test like this trend line here. But again, you guys know my thoughts. I'm not seeing a ton of downside for yields, and nor will I for the foreseeable future. But 30-year did back off a little bit. And again, I was a little surprised to see the strength in the long bond today. So I'm not sure if that means anything. All right, XHB, new all-time high, new all-time closing high. You know, what can you say about that? That hasn't already been said. VNQ down 4 cents. That pattern is still fine on the weekly. I still like that. XLF got through our 40 handle, a little bit of a shooting star candle with a gap, so that may need to come back in a little bit next week. Next level is at about, yeah, we'll just say 41, and then obviously your double top up there for the XLF. KRE, again, still on the weaker side. I don't like that one on the weekly and on the daily. KBE is a little bit better on the weekly and on the daily, but still not the greatest chart, at least not right now. Broker dealers, new all-time high and an all-time closing high, but they did pull back in. By the end of the day, oil, we talked about that, down $2. It's still fine. You know, you could just firm this up next week and go. I still think that's a really high possibility, but today's price action was definitely strange. Also, what was interesting is that XLE, here's the best thing for oil right now. XLE had a gap down, sold off initially, and then rallied back really to just close down 57 cents. You had a nice thrust here, and now you're just kind of going sideways beneath this pivot. Could just be setting up for another leg up. Same thing with XOP, back above all the moving averages. If this just consolidates a little bit more, it can get through that 140 handle. And then OIH here is my favorite, same thing. Gap down, open, and then rallied back all day long. If we look at the weekly, got a weekly close above that trend line now. So that's a positive, obviously, for OIH. And it's acting well. All right, uranium. If you haven't checked the video out, it's on the channel. I just did it last night. But you can see here, Camco has finally failed at something. This hasn't failed at anything for a long time. By the way, look at that monthly candle so far. There's still a week left, but that's basically an engulfing. But weekly green bar is now failed. So I'd expect this to correct down to probably 37.50, maybe 35. And then if you get through that, you've got a lot of support down in the 30 handle. But those are just your short-term levels. Doesn't mean it goes there in a straight line. You'll probably get bounces. You might even get a bounce early next week. But not a good sign to see that lose that breakout bar. URNM. Oh, wow, they didn't save it. Wow, so they must have just flushed it. Yeah. So I did tweet a pic of this at like an hour and a half ago. And we were not that, we were not that close to the line here, but they flushed it down. So it looks like we closed at 47.9. So it's saying 47.19 here, but this close is 47.27. I'm going to assume it's this one. Yeah, I'm assuming we closed below that. So we closed below it on URNM as well. Actually, let me just check. 47.14. Let me do this right so that actually we get it. All right, so okay, we'll call it saved then by 5 cents. And yes, that matters. There's no coincidences. So URNM is saved. Let me look at URNJ. That's saved too. So again, I talked about this yesterday in the video. Maybe starting to see rotation out of the majors and rally broadening out. That's a good sign for long term. Doesn't mean it won't go through a correction, but it's good for the long-term health. Anyway, nat gas here rolling over. So down another 8% on the day. This is getting, look at it, down ticking right now as we get close to the futures close. This is like oversold. It's everything you can call it. I don't think there's that much more downside. I think at this point they probably spiked the low. You know how they love to gap this thing down on Sunday nights? I think they probably spiked the low, and I wouldn't rule out one more low here, but I mean, I've already started nibbling on it. This is it's just too attractive down here. Maybe I don't know, maybe they take it to $1. I think EQT's margins would implode if that happened, but yeah, it's wild. It's wild down here. All right, dollar index, we talked about flat day down a penny. We did close below that green the other day, but there's still a lot of support in here, so not the end of the world. And as long as we're above 103.50, I think it's okay. Again, gold we talked about had a decent day. that's starting to firm up here. We'll see if it follows through next week and if bonds follow through. Silver trying for a higher low, so nothing terrible there. For silver futures, I'm not sure what that wants to do yet. Still kind of neutral. Platinum, flat to positive. Palladium also looks like it's setting up a base here for a zigzag up. And then copper here backing off. Again, we'll see next week if we start to dip down, if we need to do this or not. Right now, just leave it there. It's not really that big of a deal anyway, but copper just chopping around right now. You have lower highs, lower lows. If you take out that, you can repair the chart a little bit more. But again, I've been neutral on this for a while. All right, Bitcoin not doing anything of significance here. Still just consolidating inside of this green. If we back off, your first area of concern is below like 48. But really on the weekly, I'm not concerned with this until it's below 44. So it can do a lot of back and filling here and be fine. Right now, the chart looks good. The daily looks good. The weekly, just a little overbought. You had a big thrust for a couple of weeks into some resistance. But right now, it can just go sideways, just like it did before. You can either correct through price, right, by going down, or you can just correct through time. And that's what it did last time. We'll see what it does here. But I don't really have any problems with Bitcoin. It looks fine. Again, just remember spiders. Again, we'll see if we get news over the weekend. I'm really thinking that that could be a thing. But right now, bulls in full control, above 49.46 especially. Again, could this act as resistance? Could we go like this and then, yeah, there's nothing saying that can't happen. But I'm not going to get in front of it until I see that happen. I don't mind missing the first 2-3% if we're going to correct 18 to 20. But I would certainly not like to be on the wrong side of a 10% blow off top. So that's kind of my thoughts right now going into the weekend. Anyways, guys, going to wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I'll talk to you guys all next week.